I stared at my phone screen, reading the text message for the 5th time. The words hadn't changed, but somehow I kept hoping they would. "Christmas is better without you. Don't come." My father's name glowed at the top of the message, and below it, those 8 words that felt like a punch to the gut. I was sitting in the back of a military transport truck, bouncing along a dusty road in Afghanistan. Around me, other soldiers were laughing, talking about their own homecoming plans. Someone was showing pictures of their kids. Another guy was planning his proposal to his girlfriend. The excitement in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Everyone was going home for Christmas after 18 long months of deployment. Everyone except me, apparently. My hands were shaking as I held the phone. Not from fear, I'd faced enemy fire and didn't shake. Not from cold, it was actually pretty warm in the truck. I was shaking from something much worse: disappointment, hurt, and underneath it all, a burning anger that I was trying very hard to control. This was supposed to be different. This Christmas was supposed to fix everything between Dad and me. I'd been planning it for months, saving up money, making arrangements. I even had a surprise that I thought would finally make him proud of me, finally make him understand why I chose this life. But here I was, reading a text that made it clear he didn't want me home at all. I thought about the last time I saw him, right before I deployed. We'd gotten into another fight about my military career. He'd called it a waste of my life, said I was just running away from real responsibility. I'd said some things too, things I regretted the moment they left my mouth. We hadn't spoken much during my deployment, just a few awkward phone calls where Mom did most of the talking. I'd hoped that time and distance would heal things between us. I'd hoped that maybe he'd missed me enough to want me home. I was wrong. The truck hit a bump, and I almost dropped my phone. I looked around at my fellow soldiers, all of them buzzing with excitement about seeing their families. None of them knew that my own father had just uninvited me from Christmas. None of them knew that the person I'd been most excited to see was the same person who didn't want to see me. I took a deep breath and typed back a single word. Understood. That was it. No argument, no pleading, no explanation of how much this hurt, just one word that let him know I'd received his message loud and clear. But as I hit send, something else was forming in my mind. A plan. Dad thought he could just dismiss me like I was some unwanted guest. He thought he could hurt me and that would be the end of it. He didn't know me as well as he thought he did. 18 months in the military had taught me a lot about strategy, about thinking 3 steps ahead, about making moves that your opponent never sees coming. I scrolled through my phone until I found the contact I was looking for, Colonel Hayes. My commanding officer was tough, but fair, and she'd always respected my service record. More importantly, she had the authority to approve certain types of paperwork changes. My finger hovered over her number for a moment. Once I made this call, there would be no going back. Once I set this plan in motion, everything would change, not just for me, but for my whole family. I thought about my little brother Tommy, who used to look up to me before Dad poisoned him against my military service. I thought about Mom, who tried so hard to keep the peace between Dad and me. I thought about Mrs. Winters next door, who always sent me care packages and told everyone in the neighborhood how proud she was of me. And then I thought about Dad, sitting in his recliner, probably feeling satisfied that he'd put me in my place, probably thinking that his harsh words would just make me sad, and that would be the end of it. He was about to learn something about his daughter that he'd never understood. I wasn't the same girl who'd left for basic training 3 years ago. I wasn't someone who would just take his rejection and quietly disappear. I dialed Colonel Hayes' number. "Colonel, it's Sergeant Thompson. I need to make a change to some paperwork, and I need it processed immediately." As I explained what I wanted to do, I could almost see the pieces falling into place. Dad had no idea what was coming. None of them did. In exactly 48 hours, his phone was going to start ringing. And it wasn't going to stop. Growing up, Dad wasn't always like this. I remember when I was 7, he taught me how to ride a bike in our driveway. He ran alongside me, his hand steady on my back, promising he wouldn't let go. When I finally pedaled on my own, he cheered louder than anyone. That's the Dad I used to know. But somewhere along the way, everything changed. It started when the factory closed down. Dad had worked there for 15 years, ever since he married Mom. He was proud of that job, proud of providing for his family with his hands. When they shut the doors and moved production overseas, something inside him broke. He started drinking more, started getting angry about things that never bothered him before. Mom tried to keep things normal for Tommy and me. She'd make excuses when Dad missed my soccer games or forgot to pick me up from school. "He's just tired, honey," she'd say. "Work is really stressful right now." Even after he lost his job, she kept making excuses. "He's looking for work. It's hard on a man's pride." I was 12 when I first mentioned wanting to join the military. We were watching a documentary about World War II, and I said something about how brave the soldiers were. Dad's face went dark. "Military's just a way for poor kids to get themselves killed for rich people's problems," he said. "You're too smart for that nonsense, Alex." I didn't understand then why he was so angry about it. Mom later told me that Dad's own father had died in Vietnam when Dad was just 5 years old. He'd grown up without a father because of the military, and he wasn't about to lose his daughter to it too. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the military was my calling. In high school, I joined ROTC, despite Dad's protests. I was good at it, really good. The structure, the discipline, the sense of purpose. It all felt right to me. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere. Dad hated it. Every time I came home in my uniform, he'd make some comment about me playing soldier. When I won awards, he'd find reasons not to attend the ceremonies. When my ROTC instructor talked about my potential for military leadership, Dad would change the subject. The fights got worse as I got older. Dad would drink and start talking about how I was throwing my life away, how I was abandoning my family for some fantasy about serving my country, how I was just like his father, choosing duty over family. "You think you're some kind of hero?" he yelled during one particularly bad fight when I was 17. "Heroes don't leave their families behind. Heroes don't make their mothers cry themselves to sleep worrying." "I'm not leaving anyone behind," I shot back. "I'm trying to serve something bigger than myself." "Bigger than your family? Bigger than the people who actually love you?" That's when I made my mistake. I was 17 and angry and hurt, and I said something I'd regret for years. "Maybe if you'd serve something bigger than yourself, you wouldn't be such a bitter drunk." The silence that followed was deafening. Dad's face went white, then red. Mom gasped from the kitchen doorway. Even Tommy, who was only 13 then, looked shocked. Dad didn't speak to me for 2 weeks after that. When I graduated high school and announced I was enlisting, Dad didn't come to my graduation party. He didn't help me pack. The morning I left for basic training, he was already gone to his new job at the hardware store. Mom hugged me goodbye with tears in her eyes, and Tommy gave me an awkward wave from the porch. I thought basic training would be the hardest thing I'd ever do. I was wrong. The hardest thing was calling home and having Dad refuse to come to the phone. The hardest thing was sending letters that went unanswered. The hardest thing was coming home on leave and feeling like a stranger in my own house. During my first deployment, I sent money home every month. I wrote letters to Tommy about school and girls and life. I called Mom whenever I could get to a phone. But Dad remained distant, cold. When I did talk to him, our conversations were stilted and brief. "How's the weather there?" he'd ask. "Hot," I'd answer. "Good. Well, here's your mother." That was it. That was all we had left. I kept hoping that time would heal things between us. I kept thinking that maybe, if I proved myself, if I showed him I was good at this, if I demonstrated that I was serving with honor, he'd come around. I was wrong about that too. Now, sitting in this truck with his rejection burning in my phone, I realized something. Dad wasn't going to change. He'd made his choice about me a long time ago, but I was about to show him that I'd learned to make choices too. Afghanistan taught me things about myself I never knew. It taught me that I could stay calm when mortars were falling around our base. It taught me that I could lead a convoy through hostile territory without my hands shaking. It taught me that I was stronger than I ever imagined. But it also taught me about loneliness. Every month, I sent half my paycheck home. Not because Mom asked for it, but because I knew things were tight. Dad's job at the hardware store didn't pay much, and Tommy was getting ready for college. I never told them about the money. I just had it deposited directly into their account. I figured Dad's pride wouldn't let him accept help from his soldier daughter, so I made sure he never had to know where it came from. I wrote letters constantly, long letters to Tommy about everything I was seeing and learning. I told him about the Afghan kids who would wave at our convoys, about the mountains that looked like something from a postcard, about the friends I was making from all over America. I tried to make it sound exciting rather than dangerous. I wanted him to be proud of his big sister, not worried about her. The letters I got back from Tommy got shorter and shorter as the months went on. At first, he'd write pages about school and his friends and the girl he had a crush on. But gradually his responses became just a few sentences. School's fine. Dad says hi. Miss you. I could feel Dad's influence in every shortened reply. Mom tried to bridge the gap. She'd call whenever she could, updating me on family news, telling me about her patients at the school where she worked as a nurse. But even she seemed careful about what she said, like she was walking on eggshells. I could hear the strain in her voice when she talked about Dad. He misses you, she'd say. He just doesn't know how to show it. But I knew better. If Dad missed me, he had plenty of opportunities to show it. He could have written one letter. He could have taken the phone when Mom called. He could have sent one care package, or one email, or even one text message that wasn't telling me to stay away. The hardest part was watching my fellow soldiers get packages and letters from home. Martinez got cookies from his grandmother every month. Johnson's wife sent him pictures of their baby learning to walk. Even the guys who complained about their families were constantly getting mail and care packages. I got packages too, but they weren't from my family. Mrs. Winters, our elderly neighbor, sent me homemade cookies and magazines and little notes about what was happening in the neighborhood. She wrote more to me in 18 months than my own father had in 3 years. Your parents are doing well, she'd write. I see your mother at the grocery store, and she always asks if I've heard from you. Your father keeps the lawn nice. I think he's proud of you, dear, even if he doesn't say so. But I knew Mrs. Winters was just being kind. If Dad was proud of me, he had a funny way of showing it. 6 months into my deployment, I started planning something special for Christmas. I'd been saving money, not just the half I sent home, but extra money from hazard pay and bonuses. I had an idea that I thought might finally break through Dad's wall of resentment. I was going to buy them a house. Not a mansion or anything crazy, but a real house with a yard and a garage, and enough space for Tommy to have his own room, instead of sharing the basement with Dad's workshop. I'd found one online in a nice neighborhood across town. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen that would make Mom happy. It needed some work, but Dad was good with his hands when he wasn't drinking. I spent months working with a real estate agent back home, arranging financing, getting pre-approved for a mortgage. The plan was to surprise them on Christmas morning with the deed. I imagined Dad's face when he realized his daughter had bought his family a real home. I imagined him finally understanding that my military service wasn't about abandoning them, it was about taking care of them. I had all the paperwork ready. The house was in escrow, waiting for my final signature. I'd arranged for a 2-week leave over Christmas to handle the closing and help them move. Everything was perfect. Until I got that text message. Now, sitting in this truck with my phone in my hands, I realized how naive I'd been. Dad didn't want my help. He didn't want my money. He didn't want me. But those months of planning had taught me something valuable about paperwork and timing and how to make things happen from thousands of miles away. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the real estate agent's number. Then I found my bank's number. Then I found the number for the Veterans Administration office back home. Dad thought he could just dismiss me with 8 words in a text message. He was about to learn that his daughter had become very good at making phone calls that changed everything. The call to Colonel Hayes went exactly as I'd hoped. She listened without interrupting as I explained what I needed to change in my paperwork. When I finished, there was a long pause. Sergeant Thompson, are you absolutely certain about this decision? She asked. Her voice was careful, professional. Once I process this change, it becomes official military record. There's no taking it back. Yes, ma'am. I'm certain. And you understand the full implications of what you're requesting? I do, ma'am. Another pause. Thompson, in all my years of service, I've never seen a soldier make this particular request. You're sure this is what you want? It's exactly what I want, Colonel. Very well. I'll have the paperwork processed within 24 hours. The official notification will go out through proper channels immediately after that. After I hung up with Colonel Hayes, I made my second call. The real estate agent back home sounded surprised to hear from me. Alex, I thought you were deployed. Are you calling about the house? We're all set for closing when you get back for Christmas. Actually, Mrs. Patterson, I need to make a change to the paperwork. What kind of change? I need to change whose name goes on the deed. I could hear papers rustling on her end. Okay, that's unusual but not impossible. Whose name did you want instead? Robert Thompson. My father. Your father? But, Alex, you're the one who's been approved for the mortgage. You're the one who's been making all the arrangements. I know, but I want the house to be in his name. Can you make that happen? Mrs. Patterson explained the legal complications. Since I was the one with the military income and credit approval, the mortgage would still have to be in my name initially. But we could arrange for an immediate transfer of the deed after closing. It would require additional paperwork and fees, but it was possible. Are you sure about this, honey? This is a big financial commitment to make for someone else. I'm sure. My third call was to the Veterans Administration office in our hometown. I'd been working with them for months on a different matter, something I'd kept secret from everyone, including my family. VA Benefits Office. This is Carol speaking. Hi, Carol. This is Sergeant Alex Thompson. We've been working together on my application. Alex, how are you, sweetheart? I have your file right here. Everything's been approved and processed. We're just waiting for your return to make the official presentation. That's actually why I'm calling. I need to change the location and timing of the presentation. Change it how? Instead of a private ceremony when I get back, I want it to be a public presentation at my family's address on Christmas morning. Carol was quiet for a moment. Alex, that's very unusual. These presentations are typically done at VA offices or military facilities. I know it's unusual, but this is important to me. Can it be arranged? Well, I suppose we could send a representative to your home, but are you sure you want this to be public? Your family doesn't know about this yet, do they? No, they don't. And yes, I want it to be public. I want the whole neighborhood to see. Carol agreed to make the arrangements. A VA representative would arrive at my parents' house at 10 a.m. on Christmas morning to make the official presentation. They'd bring the certificate, the medal, and a photographer to document the ceremony. My fourth and final call was to Mrs. Winters. Alex, dear, what a wonderful surprise. How are you, sweetheart? I'm good, Mrs. Winters. I need to ask you a favor. Anything, dear. You know that. I need you to make sure my family is home on Christmas morning at 10 a.m., all of them. Can you do that without telling them why? Mrs. Winters was quiet for a moment. I could practically hear her mind working. She was sharp for 78, and she knew something big was happening. This has something to do with that text message your father sent you, doesn't it? I shouldn't have been surprised that she knew about the text. Mrs. Winters had a way of knowing everything that happened in our neighborhood. How did you... Your mother was crying in her garden yesterday. She told me what your father did. That man is a fool, Alex. A stubborn, prideful fool. Mrs. Winters, can you get them to stay home Christmas morning or not? Oh, I can do better than that, dear. I'll make sure the whole street knows something special is happening at the Thompson house. Your father won't be able to hide from this, whatever this is. Thank you. Alex, what are you planning? I looked around the transport truck at my fellow soldiers, all of them excited about going home to families who wanted them there. I'm planning to show my father exactly what kind of soldier his daughter became. The paperwork changes were in motion. In 48 hours, everything would be official. Dad had no idea what was coming. 48 hours later, I was sitting in a coffee shop at the airport in Germany, waiting for my connecting flight home. That's when Dad's phone call started. The first call came at 6:47 a.m. his time. I watched my phone buzz with his name on the screen and let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. By the time I boarded my flight to Chicago, he'd called 12 times. I didn't listen to the voicemails until I was somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean. The first few were just heavy breathing and the sound of him hanging up. But by the fourth message, he'd found his voice. Alex, what the hell did you do? Call me back. Now. The fifth message was longer. Alex, I just got a call from some VA office saying they're coming to the house on Christmas morning for some kind of ceremony. What ceremony? What's going on? By the eighth message, I could hear panic creeping into his voice. Alex, please. Your mother is asking questions I can't answer. Just call me back and tell me what's happening. The 12th message was different. His voice was quieter, almost defeated. Alex, I know you're angry about what I said. Maybe we need to talk. But I wasn't ready to talk to him yet. I had one more stop to make before I went home. When I landed in Chicago, I took a cab straight to the VA office downtown. Carol was waiting for me with a thick folder and a smile. Alex, you look good, sweetheart. Military life agrees with you. Thank you, Carol. Is everything ready for tomorrow? She opened the folder and showed me the official documents. Everything's processed and approved. Representative Johnson will be at your parents' house at 10 a.m. sharp. He'll have the certificate, the medal, and a photographer from the local newspaper. The newspaper? Oh, yes, dear. When word got out about what you're receiving, they insisted on covering it. It's not every day someone from your hometown gets this kind of recognition. I stared at the papers in front of me. The Purple Heart certificate with my name printed in elegant script. The citation describing the IED explosion that had left shrapnel in my left shoulder, an injury I'd never told my family about. The recommendation letters from my commanding officers describing my actions under fire. Carol, my family doesn't know about any of this. I figured as much. That's why I made sure Representative Johnson understands the situation. He'll explain everything to them before the presentation. My phone buzzed again. Dad's name on the screen. Call number 15. You should probably call him back, Carol said gently. He sounds pretty worried in the messages he's been leaving here. He's been calling the VA office. Every hour since this morning. He's trying to figure out what's happening. Your mother called too. She sounds sweet. I thought about calling him back, but I wasn't ready yet. There was still one more piece of my plan to put in place. I took another cab across town to Mrs. Patterson's real estate office. She was waiting with another stack of papers. Alex, I have to say, this is the most unusual real estate transaction I've ever handled. Are you absolutely sure about this? I'm sure. She spread the documents across her desk. So, here's how this works. The house closes in your name tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Immediately after closing, ownership transfers to your father. The deed will be delivered to your parents' house by 10:30 a.m. Perfect timing. Alex, this house costs $180,000. You're giving your father a $180,000 gift. Plus, you're still responsible for the mortgage payments. Do you understand what you're committing to? I understood perfectly. I was committing to 18 years of mortgage payments on a house I'd never live in. I was committing to giving my father something he could never give me back, a home that was truly his own. I understand. Mrs. Patterson shook her head, but prepared the final papers for my signature. Your father is a lucky man to have a daughter like you. We'll see if he agrees with that tomorrow. My phone rang again as I was signing the deed transfer. Dad's name, call number 18. This time I answered. Alex? Alex, thank God! Where are you? I'm in Chicago, Dad. Chicago? I thought you were coming home today. I am coming home. I'll be there tonight. Alex, what's this about the VA coming to the house tomorrow? What ceremony? What's going on? I could hear the desperation in his voice. For the first time in years, Dad needed something from me. He needed answers that only I could give him. You'll find out tomorrow morning, Dad. Alex, please. Your mother is worried sick. Mrs. Winters has been telling the whole neighborhood that something big is happening. There are people asking questions I can't answer. Good? Good? Alex, what does that mean? I looked out the window of Mrs. Patterson's office at the city where I'd grown up. Somewhere out there was the house where Dad was pacing, probably drinking, definitely panicking about what his daughter had set in motion. It means you told me Christmas was better without me. Tomorrow morning, you're going to find out exactly what Christmas without me would have looked like. I hung up before he could respond. My phone immediately started ringing again, but I turned it off. Dad would have to wait until tomorrow morning to get his answers. Just like I'd been waiting 3 years for mine. I drove into my neighborhood at 11 p.m. on Christmas Eve. The streets were quiet, decorated with lights and lawn displays that made everything look magical. But as I turned onto my street, I could see that my parents' house was still lit up. Dad's silhouette moved back and forth past the living room window like a caged animal. I parked 3 houses down and sat in my rental car for a few minutes, watching. Through the window, I could see Mom sitting on the couch, probably trying to calm Dad down. Tommy was there too, home from his first semester of college. The family was all together, just like I'd always wanted for Christmas. Except they were together because they were panicking about what I'd done. I walked up to the front door and knocked. The movement inside stopped immediately. Then I heard Dad's heavy footsteps approaching. He opened the door and just stared at me for a long moment. I was still in my uniform, travel-worn but pressed. My duffel bag was slung over my shoulder. For a second, he looked like he wanted to hug me. Then his face hardened. Alex. Dad, you need to tell me what's happening tomorrow. Can I come in first? He stepped aside reluctantly. Mom appeared in the hallway and rushed toward me with tears in her eyes. Alex! Oh, honey, you're home. She hugged me tight, and for a moment everything felt normal. I missed you so much. I missed you too, Mom. Tommy hung back by the living room doorway, uncertain. He'd grown taller while I was gone, and his voice was deeper when he spoke. Hey, Alex. Hey, little brother. You look good. Dad cleared his throat impatiently. Alex, we need to talk. Now. We sat in the living room, the same room where we'd had so many fights before I left. Dad was in his recliner, Mum and Tommy on the couch, me in the chair by the window. The Christmas tree was in the corner, smaller than I remembered, with just a few presents underneath. The VA called 6 times today, Dad said. They're coming here tomorrow morning for some kind of ceremony. They won't tell me what it's about, just that it involves you. What did you do? I looked at each of them. Mom's face was worried but hopeful. Tommy looked curious. Dad looked angry and scared. I got hurt in Afghanistan, I said quietly. Mom gasped. Hurt? How hurt? When? 4 months ago. IED explosion during a convoy mission. I took some shrapnel in my shoulder. Why didn't you tell us? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Because I knew Dad would just say it proved his point about the military being dangerous. Dad's face went red. Of course it's dangerous. That's exactly why I didn't want you. Let me finish. My voice had the authority I'd learned to use with my soldiers. Dad actually stopped talking. I got hurt, but I also saved 3 soldiers' lives that day. I pulled them out of a burning vehicle while taking enemy fire. The army is giving me the Purple Heart and a Bronze Star for valor. The room went completely silent. Mom started crying. Tommy's mouth fell open. Dad just stared at me. That's what tomorrow's ceremony is about, I continued. The VA is coming here to present the medals in front of the whole neighborhood. There will be a photographer from the newspaper. Everyone will know that Robert Thompson's daughter is a decorated war hero. Dad's hands were shaking. Alex, I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't want to know. You decided 3 years ago that I was making a mistake, and you never bothered to find out if you were wrong. I reached into my bag and pulled out an envelope. There's something else. I handed the envelope to Dad. His hands were still shaking as he opened it and pulled out the deed to the house on Maple Street. What is this? It's a house. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, nice neighborhood. I bought it for you. The deed is in your name. Mom leaned over to look at the papers. Alex, this house costs $180,000. I know. I'm paying for it. Dad looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Why? Because despite everything you've said to me, despite telling me not to come home, despite 3 years of treating me like I don't exist, you're still my father, and I wanted to give you something that would make you proud of me. Dad set the deed on the coffee table with trembling hands. Alex, But here's the thing, Dad. Tomorrow morning, the whole neighborhood is going to see what your daughter accomplished. They're going to see that I'm a hero. They're going to see that you raised someone who serves her country with honor, and then they're going to ask you why you told that same daughter not to come home for Christmas. Dad's face crumpled. For the first time in my adult life, I saw my father cry. I'm sorry, he whispered. Alex, I'm so sorry. I stood up and shouldered my bag. I'll be at Mrs. Winter's house tonight. The ceremony is at 10 a.m. You can decide whether you want to be there or not. As I walked toward the door, Dad called after me. Alex, wait. I turned back. I want to be there. I want to be proud of you. I should have been proud of you all along. I nodded once and walked out into the Christmas Eve night, finally ready to come home.